So for the next session, we have a panel discussion on the topic of driving cultural transformation, the CHRO's role in shaping and measuring impact on business outcomes. And for this, I would like to invite our moderator, who is Ms. Nandini Mehta, CHRO Metro Brands Limited. Nandini is a trailblazing HR leader with over 26 years of experience in transformative driving people-centric strategies that fuel businesses and success. A recognized architect of organizational excellence, she combines innovative HR practices with a passion of empowering teams to deliver exceptional results. And her leadership has redefined employee engagement and enhanced productivity across dynamic industries. Driving excellence with a people-first philosophy, Nandini thrives on turning challenges into opportunities and has an exceptional ability to align HR initiatives with a long-term business objectives. Her strategic insights and people-first approach has made a soul after reading the HR. Now, to join Ms. Nandini for the panel, we will request our other panel members to join in. Mr. Vivek Slaria, CEO, OriginBluy. Mr. Sumeet Ghai, CHRO, SBFC Finance Limited. Mr. Balasubramanian Sethuraman, Head HR, Parekh Integrated Services. Mr. Abhishek Gupta, Head HR, ZebPay. Mr. Kavindra Pant, Head HR, Shapooriji Pallonji Group. Ms. Nandini Irani, Head of HR, RenewSys India Private Limited. Mr. Anurag Saxena, Head Talent Management, OE Aditya Birla Capital. And we will also have Mr. Varun Chopra, co-founder and CEO of WiZR, joining us in a very short time. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to moderate such a diverse panel of HR and business heads. I thank the team from Gain Skills for inviting me to moderate the session, as the topic is very close to my heart, having worked closely with business heads in various organizations to drive the culture and in certain cases to transform the culture as well. We've all heard of the famous quote by Peter Drucker which says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," isn't it? This is so true. If the core business is to do with building innovative products, and if the culture does not allow people to innovate, to create something new, to take risks, do you think the business is going to take off? Definitely not, right? So let's hear from our business heads and the panel here, all the CHROs and HR heads, what they have to say about how they've driven cultures in their organizations. So let me start off with my first question to Varun. Varun, Varun's not there? Okay, sorry, Varun is not there. So let me start off with Vivek. I had an interesting question for him, but maybe Vivek can take both the questions. So Vivek, you're the CEO of OriginBluy, and I'm sure you must be interacting with a lot of business heads, a lot of CHROs, HR heads. So could you throw some light on the correlation between culture shift and the revenue that businesses generate?
Thank you so much, Nandini. Good afternoon, everybody. Nandini, first of all, thank you for the question. What we have observed in organizations is the culture. At the end of the day, every business is responsible for revenue. Do we all agree or not? Right? And that revenue is one of the core reasons why this entire organization comes together. Now, when two people come together, between them there's a dynamic created, and that dynamic is what we call culture. Would we all agree? Right? It's not me, the individual, but the moment Vivek and Nandini start creating a shared story of an environment we are in, that becomes the culture. Any investment on culture or any efforts on culture, and there are a lot of efforts, has to ultimately serve this objective of revenue. Otherwise, your CEO is like, "Ha, theek hai, do all of this good stuff, it's great. But I have to answer to the promoters, I have to answer to the investors, I have to answer to the board," and they're only looking at earnings per share. And please tell me how is that earnings per share coming in? In our organization, one of the things that we do is we adopt this metric called return on culture, right? Now, I'm sure you've all heard of return on culture, but the way we started differentiating it is how many basis points does a certain factor increase and its correlation to the output that my leader wants. So for example, if I increase the empathy factor in my organization by, let's say, 5 basis point, does it have a correlation to the strategic growth imperative that my CEO has, right? Now, as you can imagine, this is not something that gets done overnight. This is not something that will shift in a one-day's workshop. So it's a journey that every organization goes through. They try to identify those levers of culture and its impact on their strategic avenues. So return on culture and having a direct correlation with the strategic objectives.
Very interesting. I've never heard of this anywhere before. And actually, I think you answered the question that I was supposed to ask Varun, which was, how did he go about defining the culture and then working with his HR team and head to drive it? So I think you already answered that. But if you want to throw some light on it, you can do that.
Cultures get built accidentally. Yes or no? Unless somebody in this room decides to re-anchor the culture to a new direction. And I'll share one of the classic examples, one of the best organizations I have worked in when it comes to culture, which is Procter & Gamble, right? There was a culture that was getting built. But at a certain stage of this organization's growth, they said, we have to define the way we want this organization to be. They defined the drivers. They defined how will those drivers get achieved. And then very uniformly across the world, they started implementing these drivers and these behavior sets, right? Gets echoed at the very top, so the leadership has to start demonstrating it, then the second layer, then the third layer, and so on and so forth. I have seen in Indian organizations, our approach to culture does not become so scientific. So first, and I'll talk a little bit more about in the next talk, but first, a very strong focus on what business do we want to achieve? What elements of people interaction, not individually, but people interaction, will drive those business outcomes? And now how do we systemically build this up? How do I make sure that the leadership echoes it, the management echoes it, the feet on street echo it uniformly? So it's a conversation that people undergo, and then they define these factors, and then those factors get implemented systemically.
Yeah, and I think this approach helps, especially let's say tomorrow there's a leadership change, nothing changes because you've already created a process of how to drive the culture. So yeah, I think that's a very good approach. Thank you for sharing that. My next question is to Bala. He heads HR for Parekh Integrated Services Private Limited. So Bala, my question to you is, how do you engage your leadership and employees at all levels in a cultural transformation? And if you've had an experience, please share that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you everyone. Good morning. I think we are still a little far away to the good afternoon, so I request everyone to wake up a little bit. I'm sure everyone had a good round of tea and some sandwiches, I guess. So little smiles on your face. I think everyone's so very serious. Culture transformation is not a big deal. All of us have gone through it, and we need to continuously keep doing it so that, all of us have a better life. In the organization, I will say the most important part, as Vivek just touched upon, it's the people who make all the difference, and the people would mean everyone. Right from the owner of the organization to the peon of the organization. I mean, the culture is defined based on the way you are treated. So be it a customer, be it someone who's just come to deliver a product at your office, how you are treated, I think that's what defines the culture. I mean, how many of us have gone for an interview, we have not been asked for a glass of water? And what do you then decipher about the organization? Oh, they don't care for people. They don't really bother about the person who's coming in for an interview. You are just made to wait for an hour, 2 hours, and you just are let go. And there are organizations who have people who assist you with a smile. The front office is the first definition of what the culture of the organization is all about. So I think, to me, the first thing in the education or the learning that we need to imbibe upon is the orientation that happens at the start of anyone who steps into your office. How is the culture that is defined to them? How is the experience that you're providing to them, and how we take it forward? I'll circle back to my present organization. So I've been thankful enough to work with an organization where the mindfulness is there to have a cultural change. Yes, I come from a very family-oriented business where, for 30 years they didn't have an HR function. So there was nothing called as an HR process per se. So it took me almost a year to build some policies, build some standard operating procedures, and literally go and influence each and every business unit head, because they are the ones who are going to change, because they are the ones who are the middle managers who actually can make or break an intervention. How many of us agree to this? Yes? So if the reporting manager or the middle manager does not buy your concept, he is going to ensure or she is going to ensure that it's going to be a failure. And to cite an example, so we have been juggling about this grading structure, M1, M2, S1, S2 for the past 15, 20 years, almost since the time I've been in the organization. And why the organization is not willing to change is, Vivek might feel bad if I put him in M2, wherein, Bala is an M1. Bala has joined later than Vivek. Vivek has been with me working for so long, and how can I put him in the M2 grade, which is lower than Bala? So this is something the cultural transformation can help you do by educating all the stakeholders in terms of what's in it for them when certain changes are brought about to the organization. So when there is a transformation in terms of titles, in terms of designations, a lady spoke about, why do we need titles? Why do we need to have fancy designations? I think these are certain things, as she rightly mentioned, we have only created it, but at the same time, that's the need of the hour. Just to give you an example, 12 years ago when I joined this organization, we never used to have our designations printed on a visiting card. It was told in our organization, we have a flat structure, we don't put a designation on the visiting card. But how many of you would actually accept my visiting card? You'll say, Bala who? No one knows about Bala. Unless they go to LinkedIn profile and they meet me at some of the networking events. So culture to me is more about how you take care of people, how you are connected to them, and at the end of the day, how the culture is, at the end of the day, helping the business grow. I mean, all of us need to ensure that the business grows. Without the business, you can have the best of the culture, but if it doesn't percolate to more profitability or profitability in terms of more compensation to the employees, the cultural shift is not going to really matter.
Thank you so much for that, Bala, and I so relate to you because I currently work for a family organization, and it's been about 3.5 years, and I've really had to bring about a lot of changes because from scratch, since there was no HR as such as a function there. So I so relate to you, and I think without the buy-in of the leadership, we cannot drive anything, and we need to ensure that all the managers and the leaders at various levels work with us on this. So thank you for that. My next question is to Kavindra, who's heading HR for Shapooriji Pallonji Group. Kavindra, what role does employee feedback play in shaping and measuring cultural transformation?
A fantastic thing, and as rightly pointed out by Vivek and Bala both, they have emphasized, yes, who drives the culture. So ultimately, employees or the people working in an organization drives the culture. And from where the culture emanates, it's basically the value system of that organization which actually defines the culture, that what is actually expected out of people. So since it has to be driven by employees, and when I'm saying employees, it is right from the top to bottom. Though I am a strong believer that the culture is always driven from top. It is never bottom up. The approach is always top down. But when we talk about the successful organization and which we can correlate with the best of the organization in terms of their culture, it's the freedom which has been given to the employees to talk about, to transform, to translate the value system into their daily activities. So when we talk about the feedback from employees, why it is important and how it drives the culture or how it helps in maintaining the culture related to the value systems. First is the feedback when you get it, you get the understanding that how the business is transforming and how the culture has to be transformed along with that. Just to give you an example, when you are looking at a ramp up or your sales targets are probably you are looking at doubling the growth. So the culture has to change. The value system remains the same, but the speed of execution, your process system will have to be realigned. The second important aspect is it gives you the employee feedback, provides you with the gap analysis, that what is going right, what is not going right. That helps HR as well as the management to realign yourself, to meet up with the need of the organization, the expectations of people. Because ultimately, people are the most important assets in any of the organization, and driving the business as well as the culture is primarily their responsibility and what they take the organization through. Then again, how it helps the organization is it helps in engaging with the people, that they feel valued within the organization, and they feel that they are contributing to the organization in terms of the growth as well as in terms of driving the cultural initiative within the organization. And lastly, when I have to look at it's a two-way communication, that what we are proposing and how it has been implemented, they can see and they can correlate with overall with the organization. That brings in the overall contribution to the business as well as sense of belonging to the organization.
I think the last bit is so relevant that, when you take employee feedback and work on it, definitely there's a sense of belonging. Something that we used to measure we even do it currently, and in my earlier organization, is we would do an employee engagement. We would pick the feedback that come from that, we would work on it, and get back to the employees that these are the areas we have worked on. Of course, you cannot do everything, but we pick the top 5 areas and we work on it. And trust me, our engagement scores over the years had gone up drastically from a 63% to an 85%. So that's the kind of engagement that we were able to drive by taking their feedback and working on the feedback. So this is just an example that I thought I'll add on to. I'll come to Varun now before I go to Anurag. Varun, I already asked your question to Vivek, but I think I'd like to hear from you because you are the co-founder of a 1-year-old company, WiZR, and you have also been, I think, the co-founder of a company called Eduans, which has been in the industry for 8 years, 2 very different companies while they are correlated. So just wanted to check with you, how do you manage to build the culture in 2 organizations that are so different and drive that with your HR team?
No, thank you so much for this. No, you're absolutely right. We started Eduans 7 years ago. And Eduans is one of the leading lending entities in India today. We are an NBFC that gives loans for education and skilling. And it's grown phenomenally well. And we ended up thinking about WiZR a couple of years ago with the idea of employee skilling. We started looking very closely because 70% of the people who are taking loans from us were working professionals like all of us in the room. Now, when we started building these 2 companies, of course, they're built on very 2 different basic infrastructure. Eduans being a lending entity has very different set of values and cultures. You're set on a principle of data privacy, you're set on a principle of regulations, process orientations. It's a little bit old school because it's not a very, what we say in art, a very sexy business. It's a lending, it's a long-term business. WiZR on the other side for us was all about innovation, customer centricity, moving fast, breaking things, building faster. Unlike, something which we were not used to doing in NBFC. So as a founder, one of the things that when we started building WiZR, I did very differently when we were building Eduans was, when we built Eduans, just like what I think he said, we never cared about HR function. For us, HR was all about hiring, making sure people are getting paid. But when we, over a period of time, we realized the value of, culture, things like, setting up your missions, vision, and getting everybody aligned. So on day 0, when we thought, we are building WiZR and it's going to be a separate business for us all together, one of the things we started doing is we defined very clearly what are the 2 values the 2 companies going to stand for. And, we got the leadership in a room and we created, I still remember, a Venn diagram. I said, there's going to be a part which will overlap. And that part we called, we used to call JI, which is like the joining engine in a way, that you guys, there are certain set of people who are going to be core to both sides of the business and going to act as a supporting business. But there's going to be a large part of Eduance which is going to be very different than what WiZR is going to be about, because we cannot innovate as fast or spend too much of money or time in innovating, on Eduance side, which we want to do on WiZR side. So when we started identifying the values for both set of business and where they overlap and where they are separate, of course, the first thing we did was we took people into confidence and we started identifying workforce which will suit these kind of 2 businesses. So our hiring philosophy changed. The way we were interviewing for WiZR became very different the way we used to interview for Eduance. Where in Eduance, experience of a person mattered. Their integrity, the way they look at data, the way how process orientation they are into, coming on time, leaving on time, all that was okay. On WiZR side, we knew there are no working hours. You're building something from a scratch. So we needed people who are flexible, people who value innovation, people who are not getting attached to what they are building if you are breaking it apart. So those set of values became very important. So we started very early on the way we were hiring and building the team, and then the way we were hiring and building the leadership. Now the good thing for us was we had a very experienced set of people on Eduance side, and I knew it's going to be very difficult in some cases, these 25, 30-year-old people, tell them to suddenly, hey, let go of the process. Just learn on the flow. And I could see very easily they were just not comfortable with it. So there were times when we were, we kind of promoted in our internal talent where we knew, okay, on WiZR side of things, we don't have to build, for example, I think Loveleen spoke earlier about designations, hierarchies, experience. Over here, we can promote people in a way or give them, bigger responsibilities. So culturally, these 2 companies, became very different. But we clearly used our leadership and L1 layer as a joining forces between these 2 sides. And as WiZR started developing its own set of values, which we call today iconic, innovation, customer centricity, and all that, we realized that Eduance will have its own set of values, which will get defined by people, which will get defined by processes, but that DNA has to be built from day 1 in terms of hiring people. Couple of things that remain common is exactly what you said, the way we were taking feedback from the team members. That became very crucial because as we took feedback, we realized there were people on either side wanted to move over. Somebody enjoyed being here, somebody enjoyed being here. And that all started coming out where people started giving values that, okay, part of us can be moved here and part of us can move here. So I think we started doing what we call transparency sessions in today at Eduance and WiZR, where every 15 days for 1 hour, the entire team and all of us sits and we very transparently discuss what's happening in both sides of the business. What is the kind of cash we have? What is the customer saying? What we have built? What hasn't gone well? And I think people, these kind of cultural aspect we never had in Eduance. And I think on those side also we started seeing that changes and people starting innovating on those kind of things. So once you define, I think, the Venn diagram of values and you identify the talent you need to hire, you build a layer of leadership and then you engage with your employees consistently. I think it's not a one-time journey. We have realized we continue has to kind of upgrade ourselves as the product and the team matures. But with the set of right people, I think the path becomes very clear.
I think that's an amazing lesson for all the HR folks sitting here. Coming from a business head who's handled 2 totally different businesses and built the culture. So thank you so much for that. It's very enlightening. My next question is to Anurag. So Anurag, you head talent management for Aditya Birla Capital. And we all know that Aditya Birla is a large organization with multiple companies under it. And I'm sure there must be a group culture that it follows. So wanted to check with you and hear from you. What is the strategy that you have worked on to ensure that while the group culture is maintained, you have built your own culture for the company that you work for?
Yeah. So I think Vivek spoke, Varun spoke, and they talked about business objectives. So the idea first is that culture will not exist until unless you have clear business objectives, business strategy,
what you want to achieve, that is defined, right? So in an organization like a large conglomerate like Aditya Birla, what the group culture defines for us is the purpose, okay, why we exist as a business, okay? That's more a directional statement, and that's more that how do we see ourselves growing. So what it defines for us is that the strategy that we build, how we are going to achieve it, what are the guardrails, okay? But as I think Varun was mentioning, that if there are various businesses that we have which are in various different sectors, industries, and at different life stages of growth, yeah? So there are business nuances which are very unique to every sector, business within the company. And as a strategy, that flexibility is given to all our businesses in Aditya Birla Group, okay? So when we are building a culture, say for instance in the financial services businesses, which is Aditya Birla Capital, we have a very unique, nuanced way of defining it, that how we are going to go about achieving our business strategy, okay? I think what Varun was trying to explain, that they created a Venn diagram, something similar to that, okay? Let me try to give you a small example. Say some of you would have been coming from joint families, right? And in joint families, you know that obviously there is a culture within the joint family which is defined by the heads of the family. But within every joint family, there are small subcultures also existing, okay? So you will have small nuclear setups within that, and then within that people behave and operate in a certain way. However, the overall objective of the family is managed, right? So something like that is what a large conglomerate operates when it comes to building these subcultures and achieving business objectives within that, okay? Let me try to give you one more example. See, culture is a little fuzzy topic. I think I liked what Vivek said, that they have built a metric called return on culture. We being in HR, we are always questioned by the boards that how do you measure, right? We have always stayed on the path saying that, see, culture are behaviors, a set of behaviors. You can verify them, but it's very hard to measure it, okay? And when you verify them, you try to build it into your processes, like some of us said that in your hiring processes, in your growth processes, okay? But it's very difficult to measure it. Now, let me try to give you an example that how this, say in the value framework of Aditya Birla Group, there is an element called as seamlessness, okay? But however, when it comes to, say, when we operate in the Aditya Birla Capital, we call it about collaboration, okay? But how will this aspect of collaboration get nuanced to the capital business and get measured? Okay, so the measurement happens through our business objectives itself. So we have within the business something called as we cross-sell, okay? So we have some 9 different businesses. Every business has its own customer, but we want to own the customer as a complete entity, okay? Complete entity of financial service, and we cross-sell to him all our products. Now to do that, we ensure that there is a cross-sell measurement target. There is a support architecture which is built. So if there is a digital platform needed to reach out the customer and to ensure that he is made aware of all our products so that he can buy on the online platform, that is available. We ensure that each and every employee, whichever business, so if he's an employee of our insurance business, does he know, say, an investment product, or does he know a lending product? So we ensure that he knows that. Now, by building these business processes and systemic intervention, we are ensuring that collaboration comes to life on the ground, okay? So, see now, there is a group value called as seamlessness. It gets translated into a value called as collaboration. And by the business processes and practices that we build, we are trying to, on the ground, ensure that it is getting met. The objectives of the business are getting met. Now, that's how probably in an organization or a conglomerate, you translate the group value on the ground to business objectives. Yeah?
Thank you. I think you gave some amazing examples.
Yeah.
Just to add to what Anurag just said, I worked in a group company and very similar. So we had group values. What we had done is we had defined them as guiding principles for our business. And there were certain nuances which were slightly different from what the group companies drove, and we had to define that separately. So hence we defined that in our guiding principles, and that was the base on which our business was built and our culture was built. So I think that was a good example. Thank you so much, Anurag.
Just to add, see, many a times what these culture principles help leaders within the business do. See, there are these choice making and decisions that every leader has to take. And I think when you have certain guiding principles or certain behaviors in the way you have to operate, it helps you solve those dilemmas. Okay? And these dilemma solving has to be nuanced to the business that you are in. What is the requirement? What will enable the business to win in the marketplace? I think both Varun and Vivek, being business heads, they talked about it. Okay, and that if nuancing you don't do, then it will be very difficult for leaders to practice, right?
Thank you for that. My next question is to Sumeet. Sumeet is the CHRO of SBFC Finance Limited, and I'm sure you must be having employees working in your organization from Gen Z to baby boomers. So wanted to know from you if you made any cultural changes to address the multi-generational requirements in the organization.
So thanks, Nandini. It's SBFC. We are in operations from 2017, and we are a pretty young organization. We are an NBFC, and we deal in loan against property and gold loan. 50% of my manpower is below the age of 30, and which makes a good, diverse demography. So now, while I put the perceived challenges of the generation which we are dealing in, I would also like to try and put from their perspective. So one of the things which is common, which most of us will agree, is that the generation which is 30 years and below do job hopping. They change jobs very frequently. If I think from their perspective, does that also mean that they are not risk aversive? They are ready to take risk. I mean, just think of our times. Changing job was not so easy, and sometimes we were really comfortable in a place irrespective of the environment used to be, even including the managers. And we say that, change jobs because of managers, but still we used to tolerate whatever it used to be. The second thing which comes very frequently is they are looking for a very quick career advancement, career growth, and we find it very hasty at times. Does it also mean that they are hungry to perform? I mean, the other way to look at it. And the third thing, which probably for some of us we still see, or people who have not adapted as a luxury. However, for them it is one of the most important aspect is work-life balance. They are inclined towards it. The way I try to look at it is, are these people focused? They will do what has to be done at what time. This is how I look at it. So to address this, we kind of deep dive, we try to understand from what are those things which, probably they are looking at. And the need identification we got is two. That am I bringing meaningful impact in the organization? This is through various listening posts. And the other is that what is there for me? So all the initiatives, this is the foundation for whatever, whether it is a talent management or engagement, we look at these two questions to answer as end objective. And probably if we crack this, we will be able to bring a high performance culture and a culture of meritocracy. So that's how I look at this generation, with including the challenges and how we can address it. This is my point on this.
Great, thank you. Anyone wants to address the multi-generational question that I asked?
Yeah, thank you. So, been working with them, staying with them right from the last 5 to 10 years is what we have seen. A lot of these mixtures of the Gen Z, Gen X. Actually, The point is everyone has a what's in it for me. I think everyone looks at it from a different lens. So the younger generation looks at it from a different lens, primarily because they have had many things which has just come to them by default. And the generation prior to that, I think we had to work a little harder way to get things. So I think one of the reasons why there is a kind of a differentiation between the expectation and reality is instant noodles is what they look at, when we were very much inclined to have a Sewe at home. So I would put it from that perspective. They are more inclined to go to a Zomato. We would still go to a restaurant and have a good dining, a place to sit and chit chat and discuss and take things forward. I think that makes a different perspective of how we need to mix together so that all the generations who are working together are good at certain areas, need to work upon in certain areas, and we just need to ensure as HR that we are enabling and bringing everyone together on the right platform so that they achieve the end goal of the organization.
Thank you.
Let me pick this up a little bit further. Multi-generational workforce is a reality. The working propensity of people who are senior is going up. So 60, nobody is retiring really at 60, right? You still have a lot of energy and power. And the younger people, even in 21s, are already doing gig work, right? I was in a college, I was in a similar event in one of the colleges, and almost 60% of the students over there were earning some money or the other through internships, assignments, just making some YouTube videos and putting it out there, right? Organizations have to adapt their culture towards a multi-generational workforce, right? Now, on who does this onus lie? The younger audience, and you're absolutely right, they are restless, they are eager, they want to experiment more. So just telling them, "Nahi, follow the same traditional path," will not work, right? The leadership has to adapt. The leadership has to switch itself towards the way the newer generation is shifting, right? Reverse mentoring is an extremely interesting and powerful tool that all of us in our organizations can very simply, without any expense, apply right now to at least take one step towards enabling multi-generational workforces in organization, right? And I'd love for you to take this back and start doing at least this basic step. There are other steps, but just this basic step will give you very high returns.
In fact, I was looking for that answer. Thank you for mentioning that. Reverse mentoring is something that a lot of organizations do today to ensure that they bridge the gap between the multi-generations. Thank you for that. My next question is to Abhishek. I think there's already the first bell, but I have two more panelists, so you may need to give me that time. My question to you, Abhishek, is can you share a time when a cultural initiative did not go as planned?
It's working? Yeah, it's working. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Time's up, so I'm not sure. Do I need to answer this or not? But yeah, I come from an organization, a commercial break. I come from an organization which is a crypto exchange called ZebPay, through which you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies. So please, after this meeting, if someone wants to start their crypto journey, I'm there till evening. Regarding the question, yeah, cultural transformation isn't really clear, a very clear path per se. CEDVEX are teachers, I believe. We have launched, I remember we have launched a recognition program. Wasn't really very well adopted by the employees, and I was very not happy with the way that they adopted this program. And I was thinking, ki kyun nahi inko acha lag raha hai? Because the rewards are very lucrative. Rewards were very lucrative, but I didn't see a lot of participation, and we just found out. Just got sort of a little agility with feedback and all that stuff. It was too rigid. It was too top to bottom. People didn't really feel inclusive about it. Then we actually quickly aligned it to our framework. We have a culture framework called GROW, which I would have talked in detail, but I don't have a time. Interesting framework that we have created. And then we have redesigned it, relaunched it, wherein we allowed people peer-to-peer recognition as well. So we have many categories. We have actually changed the categories. Assigned the purpose, aligned the entire purpose with our framework, allowed everyone, each and every of our employee can actually nominate anyone for that matter, no limit of number of nominations, and I feel that the participation got tripled actually. It got thrice. The lucratives were already there, right? But the participation got tripled. And what I realized is, through this feedback, at least what we could do is, we actually were able to turn a near failure intervention to a very successful one per se. So that's how the cultural transformation worked for me. And it was actually a failure at a point of time, which we could salvage sometime. Now that I can obviously claim that we could salvage, but yes, it was a failure at one point of time. Learning for me is very simple. I think for culture, the best culture happens when we make culture with the people, not for them. Let it sink for a moment. When we make culture with the people, not for them. It's not a prescriptive thing that you are not feeling well, take this medicine. No. With them, we're co-creating the culture. I think that really helped us in my organization. I would love to speak more and more about this, one of my topic very close to my heart, but time's up.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. I think very well spoken, especially the last bit where you said culture needs to be built with the people and not for them, because anything top-down never works. So thank you for that. Would love to hear more on the grow, which may be over lunch. My last but not the least panelist is Nidhi. She heads HR for RenewSys India Private Limited. My question to you would be, so how do you see, so while we've spoken everything about the now, how do you see the role of a CHRO evolving in the context of ongoing cultural transformation in organizations, especially with AI, the tech boom that's happening right now?
So, a very important part which a lot of us have touched today is that CHROs actually are those, we are actually the cultural architect for the organization. We are the conscience keepers for the organization. And at the same time, we see a lot of AI coming in. We have a lot of development in this area. So the first and foremost is to strike that right balance between the leadership alignment, at the same time becoming the voice for the organization, becoming the voice actually for the employees, leveraging on a lot of data that comes in, feedbacks that have been flowing in through various endeavors that we've kind of kickstarted individually into our organizations, and most importantly, leverage on it. Speak to people, get to know more. Like he said, that we'll have to set the culture with the people and not for them. So as CHROs, it's a very striking that right balance, speaking for both the management and the employees, and at the same time ensuring that we are with the force, we are with the flow, not literally because we've started something, we need to go for it. No, it's time to also circle back once in a while, check whether we are on the right path, and then maybe continue on that endeavor. So that's something very important. Like Abhishek said, time's up, so cannot go on to this. But this topic is really close to everybody's heart. It's the need of the time. It's really required for everybody of us to consciously work over it, because culture really is the game changer for any organization.
Thank you so much for that, Nidhi. And just to add to what Nidhi said, I think the evolving role of CHROs, HR heads, HR teams in this entire generation of data, tech, AI, is to look at how do we upskill our employees, because it's not going to be too far when business leaders will start re-looking at the roles that they have in the organization. And I think HR plays a very, very big role in looking at how do we reskill, how do we re-look at our org structures, org designs, and work with our business heads to ensure that teams are prepared to take up those challenges and roles going ahead. So that's my small take on this. Thank you all for the lovely inputs that you shared. And I think my takeaway is culture is built with people and not for the people. Thank you so much for that one sentence that you said made a lot of difference. And I think everyone added a lot of value to what you said on culture. And guess it's going to be a lot of value to all of you as well. Thank you so much. Everybody is available during lunch. Feel free to reach out to them for any further queries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all the discussions that you had. It was very insightful and very engaging. And for felicitating the entire panel, I would like to invite Ms. Snehalata Deshmukh to come and share the appreciation token.